Welcome back to ID5's Mythbusting video series. Today we're going to talk about first-party data. There is a belief, a misconception we think in industry that when you have first-party data, you don't need IDs, you don't need cookies, you don't need signals. You're pretty much immune from signals loss and cookie deprecation. To talk about this, I've got Michelle Dooley with me today.
Hello,
Michelle.
Hello.
From Catalyst Media Consulting, a well-known expert in the retail media space, because who else than retailers to talk about first-party data, right? The retail media movement has taken the world by storm over the past few years. Why is that? What data do retailers have that is so interesting from an advertising standpoint?
Well, when you think about the retailer, they have such a deep relationship with the consumer that shops in their stores. So any of the brands that are sold in those stores have a desire to understand their customers better. They don't get that transaction data. They don't understand what's happening. So retailers have made that data accessible through media and some self-service, but primarily through media, where they're allowing brands to come in and advertise to drive performance in the advertising using that first-party data of shopper behavior that can really tell those signals. There's other insights and things like that, but at the end of the day, being able to close that loop with the measurement and be able to show performance because they have the transactions over, call it the last 2 years of history, all the way through to what happened during the time my campaign ran. They're able to show a return on ad spend and the justification of running with a managed service agency like a retail media network.
So it's not just the knowledge of customers and what they buy, and I'm sure it tells a lot of things about their, the moment in life, and if they are becoming parents or whatever. There's all of that from an audience qualification standpoint, which is super valuable. But it's also the measurement bit. It's also what they're actually ended up buying in the store.
Yes. It's the audience signal that you can understand and the different things you can infer about the customers that are shopping. And it's really predicated on that relationship that the retailer has with the customer and the trust that they have to understand the customer and serve them the most relevant advertising. When you think about that transaction data and the rich transaction data the retailers have, or other commerce players, when you see others entering the industry, that they have rich information about consumers, and by allowing brands that work with them and or non-endemic brands to leverage that data in a safe way, they're then saying we can serve more relevant ads to our customers, making their experience more valuable on the website, but then also to be able to make sure that the brands understand that their investment was well spent because that performance advertising drove outcomes in the store. So being able to say I ran a campaign, maybe I'm Diet Pepsi or Oreo, ran a campaign, I'm able to then say how much did I sell of these individual SKUs once the campaign is complete and close that loop.
So it's super valuable retail data, right? From an audience qualification and measurement standpoint. How do we go from retail data to retail media? How do they use it in a media environment to run campaign? How does that work then?
Yeah, so at Catalyst Media, we're a whole bunch of experts that have come from the retail media ecosystem. I spent about 10 years at Target, both on the loyalty side and within their media network. And moving from the brand side of the business, where we're using the data for ourselves, into the media side of the business, it's really about serving those brands that are partners with the retailer. The aspiration is then to grow into the larger brand budgets and or non-endemic budgets. So a Toyota that might be interested in people who are new to having a family, things like that. So it's bridging that gap to be able to support the partners that the retailers work with every day and drive more performance advertising. The retailer benefits at the end of the day because more shoppers are coming into their store. Again, it goes back to what's relevant for the consumer. So it's kind of an all ships rise situation. You've got the audience data you're able to then put into the marketplace. You've got your owned and operated inventory, whether it's your app or your website. But we still know that about 90% of transactions for retailers happen in stores. So it's building that bridge across your online and your in-store transaction data and your behavioral data to then serve the right audience, to then be able to serve the right media, to then be able to close the loop. And that extends beyond just the owned and operated.
I was going to say, it's not just about trade marketing. It's not just like showing an ad when the people are shopping for a product. It's like it goes above and beyond that, right?
Yeah. What's really interesting when you think about the history of retail media is a lot of it started with owned and operated inventory. Amazon had, the widest owned and operated inventory available. You start with that owned and operated inventory, and then you extend off platform. So being able to find those consumers wherever they are engaging with content, whether it's Facebook or Meta, whether it's Instacart, whether it's Pinterest, Google, YouTube, any of those different areas, programmatic, New York Times, etc. Being able to have the right experience so that the consumer can then understand and see that relevant ad to then drive them back to shop, whether it's at a Target or a Walmart, a CVS, a Cars, whoever it might be.
So let's talk about cookies, not Oreo, the other kind.
Okay.
So when people are on their site, when Target is advertising to shoppers on their site or in their app, I'm guessing like that's probably an easy recognition mechanism. How do they do to kind of recognize them outside of their owned and operated operations?
Yeah.
What do they need cookie then?
Well, they've historically relied on cookie.
Okay.
And with the owned and operated inventory, the thing about retail media that's unique is that they're part publisher, they're part agency because they're going to run media on behalf of their clients.
Yeah.
They're part data company and they're part measurement company. They have to get the data and the audience data created. They also then have to show the performance and close the loop. So it's a complex ecosystem, but what then ends up happening is they're going to sell out of their owned and operated inventory. Again, only 10% of their 10% of their sales are coming from traffic on site, with the exclusion of Amazon's and some of the digital first platforms. So then being able to take those IDs, whether it's 6 million, 100 million, or 170 million, and be able to reach those off platform is where you're really able to capture the consumer attention, which is what we're all trying to do in advertising. That being said, it's all relied on cookies thus far. So the retailers have identification with their loyalty programs, sometimes their credit card transaction data, that they're able to resolve back to a consumer identity. They probably have their own in-house identity that they then tie to that. And then they use partners in the ecosystem to be able to translate that when they're buying through a DSP or when they're buying direct at, whatever. There's the method where you send hashed emails and you allow that walled garden to hold your identity in their walls. And then there's partnerships in the middle that help translate and do some of that onboarding and bring the data. But without cookies, we need alternative solutions.
Okay, so first-party data is really, really important. It drives a lot of that value. It drives a lot of that engagement with consumers. It drives the rise of retail media, right?
Yes.
That's clearly there. But it is not an insurance policy against cookie deprecation, because if you want to be able to reach your client outside of your own walls, you need a bridge. You need a way to kind of recognize those customers outside of your universe.
Exactly. So today what happens and why retailers are poised to be safer when it comes to a post-cookie landscape is because they have that first-party relationship with the consumer. So they have the ability to understand and know that consumer and a portion of what they're doing, right? Whether it's on their site or whether it's an identity through a loyalty program that they've captured, name, address, phone, whatever it might be, email. That then becomes extensible in the cookie landscape. Without the cookie, there still needs to be a way to connect to that off-platform media. I think there's a stat of around like 35% of the retail media budgets will be off-platform media, and that is incredibly low when you look at an individual retail media network, because an individual retail media network can only sell their first-party inventory with as many impressions as they have. So you can either start expanding your impressions on-site, which is one important strategy, or you can start leveraging those off-site relationships. Being able to connect to the consumer off-site requires alternative ID solutions in a post-cookie landscape.
Great. Michelle, thank you very much for helping us debunk this myth. First-party data, super important, powering the retail media revolution, but not yet an insurance policy for cookie deprecation. You still need to be able to understand users outside of your own world, and for that, alternative IDs are key. Thank you very much.
Thank you.